They said it was justice. They called it a public sentence, fair, necessary, and merciful. They dressed it up in tradition, clothed it in ceremonial silks, surrounded it with heralds and banners and a 10-planet broadcast network. The tribunal made it official. The High Lords of Varric signed the writ, and the warlords of the Outer Rings applauded. One boy, one punishment, one perfect example. And so, on the 42nd rotation of the Varric cycle, under twin suns and the full attention of 12 star systems, they dragged a human child into the execution pit. No blindfold, no drugs, no sedation. They wanted the fear. They wanted the galaxy to see. He was small, barely 10 years old, bare feet scuffed from chains, shoulder bruised, one eye swollen shut. But his spine stayed straight, and he walked with a stubborn rhythm that clashed with the iron shackles clinking around his ankles. The arena erupted in noise, jeering, mockery, a crowd of nobles and warlords and mercenary kings, watching from crystalline platforms and armored palaces that hovered like parasites over the Colosseum. His name was Eli Janov. He was Earthborn, but that wasn't what terrified them. What truly kept the gods on edge, what made even the announcer hesitate before opening his mouth, was not the boy's origin. It was his bloodline. Because Eli was the son of a man whose name was no longer spoken, a man whose past had been sealed by 3 councils, burned from the archives of the 5 Sons Accord, redacted from every mercenary registry, and erased from every AI database by direct order of the Galactic Tribunal. Not because he was a myth, but because he was real. The announcer adjusted his robes and cleared his throat. Let this be a reminder to Earth. Their defiance ends in silence. Their spawn ends here. This is mercy. And then the execution blade descended. Not fast, not clean. It was ceremonial, made from Thalax bone, 10 feet long, coated in a memory-reactive neurotoxin that triggered nerves just before it cut through them. It wasn't designed to kill. It was designed to make pain feel eternal. The blade inched toward him. The crowd leaned forward. And Eli, this tiny, beaten, blooded boy, looked up, right at the sky, past the drones, past the twin suns, past the cameras, right into the stars. He didn't cry. He didn't scream. Not yet. Not until the blade kissed the skin of his shoulder. That's when the feed broke. 12 systems went dark for exactly 4.6 seconds. Not long enough to panic anyone. Just long enough to be noticed. When the stream resumed, blood painted the arena floor. His left arm was gone, clean cut at the shoulder. His breathing was uneven, shallow, one eye fluttering. And yet, he was still conscious, still alive, still waiting. The camera drone zoomed in, hoping to capture his final expression. He wasn't afraid. His lips were moving, barely. No audio captured it, but lip readers across the feed caught it anyway. His coming. The blade began its second descent. Faster. The tribunal didn't want more interruptions. Mercy. They called it. Let the second cut be the end. This time, it sliced diagonally, a full force drop. And the boy stopped moving. His small body slumped to the floor, lifeless. Blood pooling beneath him. 1,000 drones hovered over his corpse. No anthem. No prayer. Just a void of silence and the rising roar of applause. The nobles stood. The crowd celebrated. Across the galaxy, Slaver syndicates toasted the footage. Vexus soldiers stamped their boots. Crying generals raised their plasma-etched goblets and shouted Earth's defeat into the stars. They didn't understand. They had just buried themselves. Because the boy wasn't just a symbol. He was the warning. The last thread holding back the tide. The one thing in the universe that had kept him away. And now he was gone. The first sign came 3 hours later. The Outer-Ring defense satellites around Varric Prime flickered offline. No explosions. No hacking traces. Just gone. The planetary shield blinked. Systems rebooted. Engineers scrambled. By the time they reached the core node, they found one sentence looping on the mainframe. He has come. No name, no origin, no trace. Just those 3 words, pulsing red. Varric's nobles laughed it off, called it a prank. They ordered their Death Guard patrols to triple, posted bounty hunters at all landing docks, and activated their strongest anti-orbital artillery. But some didn't laugh. The old ones, the veterans of the Black War, the mercenary king from the moons of Kawanen, the former Wraith Lords who had once glimpsed a man in motion and lived only because he let them. They didn't speak his name. They didn't have to, because everyone who knew had the same look in their eyes, the look of prey realizing the forest had gone silent. The following morning, Baron Krelor of the Ninth Circle was found dead inside his high-security vault, skull crushed, no forced entry, his own ceremonial hammer buried in the center of his face. Security footage was reviewed. They slowed it down frame by frame. What they saw broke every known limit of recorded combat. A blur appearing behind the guards. A hand moving faster than nerve pulse sensors could register. 23 actions in 2 seconds. No hesitation. No noise. Knife. Twist. Knee. Elbow. Rip. By the time the blur moved again, the entire guard detail was dead. Not incapacitated. Not neutralized. Dead. Ripped. Crushed. Snapped. And the killer? Gone. The second noble died screaming. He was found hanging by 1 foot from the spire above the execution arena. Naked. Skinned. Still alive. Blood had been drained. His throat was slit, but not all the way. Just enough to keep him conscious. On his chest, a single phrase carved with surgical precision. You took my boy. By nightfall, 9 were dead. 6 more disappeared. No evidence of entry. No alarms. Just silence and blood. Panic spread through the elite like wildfire. But the public? They were glued to their screens. Billions watched the news feeds on repeat. Scanners. Theories. Rumors. Some said it was a ghost. Others claimed Earth had released a new war breed, something bred in the dark underworld of forgotten colonies. But the old ones knew. They whispered one word, one name, the name that had no home in any language, only in fear itself. Baba Yaga, the man who wasn't a man, the killer who didn't need a weapon, the ghost Earth never acknowledged, the myth the galaxy forgot on purpose, because they couldn't kill him, couldn't track him, couldn't even see him. He was the one thing every council warlord, every data god, every immortal clone emperor agreed should never be provoked. And they had just executed his son on live broadcast. There was no coming back from this. The galaxy just didn't know it yet. But they would. Oh, they would. They thought the silence meant safety. For 17 hours after the last noble's corpse was pulled from the execution spire, Varric Prime stood still. No new kills. No sightings. No threats. The guard doubled patrols, their exosuits humming with fresh power cells. Drones were ordered to scan every alley, every vent, every shadow. The skies were filled with warships. Bombers and battle cruisers hung overhead like vengeful gods, locked and ready. And still, nothing. The tribunal called for calm. The enemy has fled, they said. He took his revenge and now is gone. But deep down, in the core of every officer's spine, something refused to settle. Something primal. Something ancient. It wasn't logic. It wasn't strategy. It was fear. The kind of fear born not from enemies you see, but from monsters you only hear about. Because Baba Yaga was not a man. Not anymore. The ones who had faced him before, if any still live, never spoke of it in detail. They couldn't. Their minds had collapsed beneath the weight of what they'd seen. Not just the kills. Not just the speed. But the fact that he never stopped. That he didn't hesitate. That when he came for blood, and only blood. There were no negotiations, no surrenders, only silence, then pain, then death. And now he was here. Still, the officials played brave. High Command insisted on order. They held press conferences. They smiled on camera. They lied through their teeth. But behind closed doors, they begged their AI sentinels to track anomalies. Every shuttle manifest was triple-checked. Every off-world communication routed through encryption mazes. None of it mattered, because Baba Yaga didn't use ships, didn't hack networks, didn't leave footprints. He moved through fear itself, and fear had already eaten Varric Prime alive. At 2:03 local planetary cycle, the Death Guard barracks went dark. 200 elite soldiers, bred in tanks and trained since birth, equipped with neuroreflex armor, were stationed in a steel-fortified compound 5 levels beneath the palace. Not a single transmission came out. Command sent a drone. It arrived 20 minutes later, broadcasting footage to every council screen in real time. There were no gunfights, no explosions, no struggle, just blood, every wall, every ceiling, every floor. Blood soaked the ventilation shafts. Bodies were stacked in patterns, spirals, circles, symbols from no known language. Some limbs were missing. Others were arranged delicately, precisely, like some kind of ritual. But it wasn't a ritual. It was a message. Painted across the wall, written in spinal fluid, were 3 words. He was 10. Panic detonated across the upper tiers. Commanders screamed into comms, demanding orbital bombardment. Level the district, they shouted. Wipe the quadrant. The order was given. 100 plasma warheads will launch at once, turning the Death Guard compound and the surrounding half-kilometer into a crater of fire and smoke. When it cleared, there was silence for exactly 9 minutes. Then the orbital station tracking the impact picked up something impossible. Movement. From the crater. Slow. Calm. Upright. One man. Walking. Through the ashes. Unaffected. They zoomed in. The image was blurry at first, then sharpened, and everyone on that bridge stopped breathing. Black combat armor. Cracked. Ancient. Earthborn. Not manufactured. Not replicated. Worn. His hands were bare. His gait effortless. On his back, a weapon so primitive it had no energy signature, a matte black blade carved from bone and obsidian. His face wasn't visible, but his presence, it collapsed the room. One by one, the orbital crew dropped their weapons. Not in rebellion, not in defiance. They simply gave up, because when Baba Yaga stepped through the fire, it wasn't the flames that obeyed. It was the air. Oxygen refused to breathe too loudly around him. Even the smoke cleared out of his path. And on every channel, every monitor, every holoscreen across Verit Prime, the same sentence appeared, unbidden. I am not done. In the capital spire, panic finally set in. Lord Jayan, the last of the ruling tribunal, screamed for evacuation. I want a ship ready in 3 minutes. Get me off this rock. But he was too late. The docks were already dead. The last transmission from Dockmaster Halo was a blood-soaked image of a hand nailed to the hull of the escape shuttle. A child's hand. Not real. Synthetic. A doll's hand. Its fingers curled into a fist. Inside that fist, a nameplate. Eli Janov. Jayan vomited on the command floor. He demanded the palace seal. Full lockdown. Bunkers. Shock troops. Chemical turrets. Everything. And so, the wall sealed. 300 meters underground, layered in ceramite titanium, shielded by anti-teleport grids and memory disruption fields, the Varric Citadel became a tomb with one man still outside. Or so they thought. At 3:41, the lights flickered. Just once. Only in the control chamber. Power surge, a tech said. Then his head twisted sideways, snapped in silence by something no one could see. His body slumped over the console. The others backed away, weapons drawn. Visual sweep. I want cloaking field. Scan now. No results. No life forms. No energy patterns. Then a whisper. Soft. Barely audible. But it came from the speaker systems, ones disconnected from the grid. He cried for me. The room went cold. Literally. Temperatures dropped by 30 degrees in under 10 seconds. The walls began to hum. Not with electricity, but with voices. Not screams. Wails. Dozens of them. Children. Overlapping. Begging. Screaming. Crying. No, 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 please. No, please, Daddy, please is coming, please. Jayan dropped to his knees, hands over his ears. Make it stop? A lieutenant fired his weapon into the ceiling. It didn't stop. Another tried to shoot the comm system. It only got louder. Until suddenly, silence. Then the lights turned blood red, and the countdown began. On every screen, every console, every terminal. A timer. 10 seconds. Jayan screamed, "What is that? Who programmed that?" No one answered. because no one was left. In 10 seconds, the room emptied of life. He never saw the blade, never heard the steps, only the voice, calm, slow, like a father tucking in a child. You killed my heart, now I take yours. And then darkness. Across the galaxy, the broadcast was cut. All feeds, all networks, silenced. No signal, no interference, just nothing. The galaxy blinked, and for the first time in 1,000 years, it feared a single man. Not a fleet, not a species, not a planet. Just one man with grief in his bones and vengeance in his breath. Baba Yaga. And this was only the beginning. They tried to deny it, tried to bury it under protocol, beneath layers of bureaucratic firewalls and council statements filled with words like containment, stability, and incident management. They rerouted news feeds, silenced reporters, and scrubbed social media across 12 systems. They pushed a single phrase across all networks. Verit Prime is secure, all threats neutralized. But the galaxy wasn't listening anymore, because the people had already seen what the council couldn't control. They'd watched a fortress melt, an army vanish, a legend walk through fire and dust with blood on his hands and silence in his wake. They didn't care what the council said. They knew the truth. He was still out there, and he was not done. In the days that followed, a darkness crept across the stars, not physical, not measurable, but felt. Freighters rerouted away from Varric space. Mercenary guilds burned their contracts rather than set foot on any planet within 2 jumps of the massacre. Slave lords closed shop and vanished into wormholes. Even bounty hunters, the ones who prided themselves on tracking the untrackable, shut down their networks and stopped taking jobs, because they had all seen the symbol. Left behind in blood, a child's silhouette, tiny feet, tiny hands, a small, round head with a single crack down the center, always accompanied by a word carved into steel, flesh, or stone. Father. It wasn't a message. It was a curse. One by one, systems began to fracture. Vex of 4 declared martial law. The Nelorum Syndicate detonated their own fuel mines to prevent external infiltration. On the pirate world of Crawl, a warlord general slit his own throat on a live stream, whispering his already hay. The galaxy wasn't collapsing. It was rotting from the inside out. Fear spread like fire through oil. And somewhere in the shadows, Baba Yaga walked. He didn't run, didn't teleport, didn't command fleets. He simply moved, like decay, and with every step, a name fell from his list. No one knew how many there were, only that the list was short, and getting shorter. In orbit above the shattered moons of Iran, the slaver dreadnought Bloodstain was found drifting. Engines online, lights blinking, no signs of damage. A boarding crew of 10 approached, armored in anti-personnel suits and neural dampeners. They found the bridge first. Doors sealed. Inside, 19 bodies, arranged in a perfect spiral. All slavers, all with their mouths sewn shut, not with thread, with no fiber, from their own bodies. In the center, the captain was still breathing, tied to his chair with his own intestines. His voice was gone, but his eyes screamed the story. On his chest, burned into the bone with a blade made of oath-forged steel. He asked me if stars could cry. The crew never entered another ship again. They were found 2 weeks later, floating in an escape pod, smiling, silent, catatonic. Meanwhile, the council panicked behind walls and holograms. He's just a man, they insisted. He bleeds. But no one had seen him bleed. No one had seen him stop. And the stories only got worse. On the mining colony of Tel Arix, 7 mercenaries were found impaled on steel rods. Not dead, alive, barely. Their spines had been disconnected from their nervous systems, but left intact. Their eyes were forced open, held that way with bone pins, each one facing a screen, playing the same footage. Eli Janov, in the arena, begging, waiting, dying, over and over. They screamed with no mouths, twitched with no limbs, their souls caught in a loop, forced to witness what they had helped enable. And in the background, behind every shot of the boys' final moments, someone had inserted a frame-by-frame shadow, a figure standing behind the crowds, watching, waiting. One of the medics analyzing the footage whispered, "He was there?" Even then, back at the council core, a vote was held. An emergency protocol, the kind they swore they'd never use. Activate the Reapers. 4 beings, biological gods forged in black laboratories hidden beneath moons older than recorded time, built to destroy the unkillable, programmed without empathy, armed with the finest deathcraft the galaxy could offer. They were deployed with one mission: find Baba Yaga, kill him. It was suicide, but the Council needed to do something. The Reapers were sent to the Ash Belt, the last known system he passed through. 5 hours later, all transmissions ceased. When a recovery drone reached their last ping location, it found 4 things floating in space: 1 sword, 1 tooth, 1 rib, and a child's drawing. Crude, hand-sketched, shaky lines. A stick figure holding a smaller stick figure. Labeled, "Me plus Dad." No one touched the items. They simply left them there, drifting. As a warning, the Council fell into infighting, screaming, blaming. Some demanded peace talks. Others wanted to nuke every Earth-aligned system in retaliation. But it didn't matter, because Earth didn't send him. Earth couldn't even control him. He wasn't theirs. Not anymore. He was grief-made flesh. And he was hunting. The list grew smaller. Soon, only one name remained. One final name burned into his skull like a brand. High Lord Jayan, the man who signed the execution order. The man who smiled during the broadcast. The man who whispered into Eli's ear just before the blade came down, "Your father will hear you scream." Jayan was in hiding. The Council wouldn't even admit where. Not on any chart. Not in any archive. A black vault buried beneath a black world, invisible to every satellite and sensor. He thought he was safe. But safety meant nothing when he was coming. Because Baba Yaga didn't need maps. He didn't need coordinates. He didn't need ships, weapons, or allies. He had one thing: rage. And rage always finds a way. At 4:06 Standard Galactic Time, a signal pulsed across all channels. Uncoded. Simple. A phrase in old Earth Russian, never spoken since the fall of Kursk. "The wind has come for the wolves." No one understood it. No one had to. They felt it. Systems blinked offline. Trade collapsed. Stations shut down. Entire sectors fell silent. Because the galaxy knew. The hunt was over. The final name was next. And this time, there would be no broadcast. No screams. No audience. Just one man. One room. And the reckoning of a father who had been forced to watch the light die in his son's eyes. Baba Yaga was coming. And death was not the worst thing waiting for Jayan. It was being remembered. It was supposed to be impenetrable. Buried 500 meters beneath the obsidian plains of X-V, surrounded by layers of quantum-reinforced alloy and a neural field strong enough to melt the mind of any intruder, Vault Zero was built for one reason: to protect High Lord Jayan from the wrath of the universe. And from one man. No entrances. No exits. No windows. Only airlocks accessible through biometric keys wired to Jayan's living DNA. The vault existed in no maps, answered no pings, and deflected all scans. Inside it, he sat alone, surrounded by food, oxygen, recycled gravity, and 3 years' worth of resources. A single chair, a round table, 12 screens, each displaying the empty world above, the void beyond, and the endless black. He hadn't slept in 4 days. Couldn't. The lights flickered too often. The air hummed too loud. And sometimes, just as his eyes began to close, he heard a voice. Not through speakers. Not from outside. From inside his own skull. He cried for you. The sentence struck like lightning every time it came. Not loud. Not sharp. Just soft. Cold. Like a whisper behind your eardrum, impossible to reach. He'd tried every sedative. Every neural scrub. Nothing worked. Because it wasn't technology. It was memory. And memory could rot you from the inside out. Jayan paced the room, barefoot, whispering to himself, trying to recall the old breathing techniques they taught him as a child. Calm the tide, still the mind. But even those failed now. The moment he closed his eyes, he saw the boy. Eli, that face, that defiance. That quiet, terrifying calm before the blade dropped. Jayan had smiled. He remembered it clearly. He smiled because he believed he'd won. Believed Earth would shatter. That Baba Yaga, if real, would come crawling, broken, pleading. Instead came silence. And death. Now, he wasn't sure if Baba Yaga was real or a punishment woven into the fabric of guilt. He didn't care anymore. He just wanted out. But there was no out. Not from Vault Zero. It was the safest place in the galaxy. And also the loneliest coffin ever constructed. Then the lights blinked. Not a full blackout. Just a flicker. A hesitation. A breath caught in the throat of the room. Jayan froze. The hum of the systems remained. All screens were green. Oxygen, stable. Heat, stable. Security, nominal. But he knew. He didn't check the feeds. Didn't call for the AI. Because the moment the lights flickered, a new scent entered the room. Smoke. Not fire. Not chemical. Cigarette smoke. Earthborn. Bitter. A brand banned 3 centuries ago. He turned slowly. The room was empty. Of course it was. Of course it. Then came the second flicker. Longer this time. And when it came back, there was something on the table. Not someone. Something. A doll. Cloth. Frayed. Child-sized. Old. Staring at him with one button eye and one missing. It hadn't been there before. He staggered back, hitting the wall behind him, hand shaking. "How did you get in?" He hissed nothing. The lights answered. They flickered again. And this time, he heard the footsteps. Soft, measured, coming from behind him, even though the room was sealed, even though there was no door, even though that was impossible. He turned again. Nothing. Just a doll. Still sitting. Now facing him. His breath was loud now. Too loud. Ragged. Unstable. He drew his side down. An ion repeater. Modified grip. Free charge burst. He pointed it at the doll. "Not like this," he whispered. "Please." His hand trembled. And that's when the table moved. Not on its own. Pushed. From the other side. Just slightly. Just enough. He fired. Once. Twice. 3 bursts. The table exploded. The doll vaporized. And yet, the scent remained. The smoke. Burning. Closer now. In his mouth. His lungs. His memory. He coughed. Fell to one knee. Tried to stand. Asterisk. But the wall was soft. Asterisk. Not metal. Not alloy. Soft. Breathing. It took him a moment to realize. It wasn't the wall. It was a man. Standing. Behind him. Silent. Unmoving. Cold. He turned his head slowly, paralyzed by more than fear. And there he was. No helmet. No mask. Just a face. A father's face. Weathered. Silent. Covered in burns and dried blood and the wrinkles of someone who had aged 3 decades in 3 weeks. His eyes weren't glowing. They didn't need to. They were black. Not in color. In purpose. In resolve. Jayan opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Just a wet rasp. His knees buckled. Baba Yaga stepped forward. He didn't speak. Didn't raise a weapon. He simply knelt. And placed something on the floor between them. A small metal cube. A projector. It activated on its own. A recording played. The arena. The boy. Eli. His voice. His final words. His coming. Jayan sobbed. Actual sobs. Not from sorrow. Not from guilt. From knowing. From understanding. That this man wasn't here to kill him. He was here to show him. To drag him into the moment again. To trap him in it forever. The projection looped. Over and over. The blade descending. The crowd cheering. The boy staring straight into the sky. Jayan collapsed. Baba Yaga stood over him. "You said he'd scream." The man finally spoke, voice like sandpaper scraping steel. He didn't. Jayan couldn't respond. His mouth was foam. His eyes were shaking. "I'm not going to kill you," Baba Yaga said. And that was worse, because death meant an end. But this was going to go on forever. "I took your vault," he continued. "Your world. Your gods. Your future. He leaned down, so close Jayan could feel the frost from his breath. I'm going to take your mind now. He touched Jayan's forehead with 2 fingers, and Jayan screamed. His memories began to collapse, unravel, fold in on themselves. The boy, the doll, the blade, the sky, all of it rewired, replayed, rewound. Forever, his body convulsed. His sanity cracked. Baba Yaga turned away. The screens around them turned black. No footage remained. No signal ever left. But above the vault, on the surface of HFY, the ground split in a perfect circle, and smoke poured upward, in the shape of a boy's silhouette. The final message to the galaxy written in ashen flame. He remembers. And the man, the myth, the father, he vanished. Again, the news broke in fragments. At first, just static. Then whispers, pirate signals from dead frequencies. Miners on the edge of the Argus Ring swore they saw a man walk out of fire. A freighter passing through Sector 9 picked up a black box ping from HFY, coded with a language so ancient the AI translator bled heat. One message repeated in distorted bursts. He remembers. At first, no one believed it. Then the moons of Trivax 3 went dark. 3 moons. Artificial. Armored. Gone. No explosion. No impact. Just silence. As if someone had shut them off like lights. One by one. Within hours, 28 colonies blacked out. No distress calls. No escape pods. Only the smoldering trails of what used to be orbital defense systems. Planetary governors vanished. Generals disappeared mid-command. Whole fleets redirected to protect the High Lords, only to be found orbiting empty space stations, their crews surgically removed. Every victim had one thing in common. Their names were on the boys' death list. Eli, a boy, a name, turned into legend. And from that name, fear spread, wider than war, deeper than death. Across the galaxy, people began to whisper his name. Not Eli, the father, the ghost, the myth, Baba Yaga. They said he walked without shadows, killed without sound, that you never saw him arrive, only the aftermath. Some claimed he was a spirit. Others swore he was something Earth kept hidden, a relic of old vengeance born from blood and buried in the bones of forgotten wars. Governments tried to spin it, tried to paint it as a rogue Earth asset gone mad. But no one believed them anymore, because the killing was surgical, righteous. One by one, the architect of Eli's execution were dragged into the dark. Those who had mocked the boy, those who had cheered, those who had profited. Gone. Some were found turned inside out, literally. Others vanished without trace. No blood, no sound, only the smell of cigarette smoke, and a single phrase scorched into their walls, floors, or skin. He cried for you. The Galactic Senate met in emergency. 123 worlds joined the call. Panic filled the chamber. Factions accused Earth of unleashing a weapon. Earth's ambassador, a woman with silver hair and dead eyes, simply replied, "We didn't send him. We lost him." They begged for help. Even enemies joined hands. They deployed assassins. They sent reavers, hunters, seers, killers bred in void labs with no name and no emotion. Each one died before they spoke a single word. No injuries. Just fear. Their hearts gave out. Some tore out their own eyes before the end. Not one encounter was recorded. Not one image captured. Until one day, a feed emerged, posted anonymously. Galactic-wide broadcast. A single camera angle. Shaky. Dirty. Bodycam. Timestamp from a derelict station orbiting a dead planet. At first, just static. Then, movement. The feed focused. A hallway. Blood smeared across the walls like someone had tried to claw their way through steel. Corpses. 7. All armed. Elite mercenaries. Then, motion. A figure stepped into view. Slow. Deliberate. His coat dragged across the floor like a funeral shroud. One hand clutched a cigarette. The other? Empty. Until he stepped closer. Then you saw it. The axe. Old. Heavy. Stained. It wasn't clean. It wasn't elegant. It was personal. The man didn't speak. Didn't look at the camera. He simply walked past it. Behind him, the wall lit up with words. Burned in. For my son. The feed ended, but the fear didn't. People across the stars froze. Silence spread like infection. 1,000 governments issued containment orders. 1,000,000 security forces scrambled. Too late. Way too late. Because Baba Yaga was already on his way to the Council of WYMS, the center of galactic authority, an ancient fortress the size of a continent floating above the core star of the Luxary cluster. No one had ever breached it. Ever. Until now. He didn't arrive in a ship. He just appeared inside, in the chamber, during session, right in the middle of 113 delegates screaming over emergency sanctions. The guards raised their weapons. He raised his head. They dropped dead before they pulled the trigger. Not shot, not sliced, just dead. Gone. He stepped forward, boots echoing in the silence. The chamber froze, and then the screams began. Not from terror, from the fire. It came out of nowhere. No flame, no spark, just heat. Unbearable, like a sun had been born inside the dome. Delegates ran, climbed over one another, tore their own robes. One leapt from the balcony, better to fall than face him. He reached the center, the circle, 12 seats, 12 High Lords, the ones who had funded the arena, sold the boy's death as entertainment. He didn't ask questions, didn't make speeches. He pulled out a photo, crumpled, blood-stained, a picture of a boy with a crooked smile. He laid it on the council table and said, he believed in mercy. The first High Lord tried to beg. He didn't get a word out before his skull shattered from the inside. The second reached for a panic button. His arms turned backwards. Every bone snapped. The third tried to run. He got 3 steps. Then his own skin crushed his lungs. One by one, 12 executions, each silent, each precise, each delivered with more pain than the last. And when the final High Lord, the one who had given the arena order, looked up, tears streaming, whispering, "Please, I was just doing my job." Baba Yaga leaned in, lit a new cigarette, and whispered, "So was I." Then he left, just walked away, didn't look back, didn't say another word. Security forces stormed in minutes later. Too late. The Council of WRMS was ash. Every system they controlled, unlocked. Every secret, leaked. Baba Yaga didn't just kill the men. He killed their legacy. He erased their history. From the data vaults to the memories of their AI, their names would never be spoken again. He didn't destroy the galaxy. He made it remember. Not fear, not power, but lust. The kind that never heals. The kind that lives in every father who's ever buried a son. He returned to Earth. They say he stood at the crater where Eli was born. Alone, in silence. The wind didn't blow. The trees didn't sway. Even time held its breath. He placed the axe in the ground, laid the photograph beside it, then vanished. No one knows where he went. Maybe he died. Maybe he became something else. But from that day forward, no child was ever taken again. No arenas reopened. No government-sanctioned slaughter. Because somewhere, out there, he was still watching. And the galaxy knew, if it ever hurt another child, Baba Yaga would answer again. And this time, he wouldn't leave anything standing.